There you go.
Good evening and welcome to the Joint Planning and Zoning Board and Board of Commissioners meeting of October the 4th, 2022. I am Briggs Simmons, the Planning and Zoning Chair. Prior to this meeting, announcements were posted and notices were sent to all board members, commissioners, staff, interested parties, and applicants participating in this meeting. I will now turn the meeting over to Dr. Ramona Jackson-Jones, Board Chair, to introduce and confirm the presence of our commissioners.
Thank you so much, Chairman Simmons. Board of Commissioners, certainly I'll start with roll call. I'm Dr. Ramona Jackson-Jones, the Chairwoman of the Douglas County Board of Commissioners. And then, of course, we have Commissioner Ann Jones-Guider of District 4. If you would acknowledge your presence.
Present.
Okay. Tarenia Carthen, Commissioner of District 3.
Present.
Henry Mitchell III, District 1. Okay. Thank you so much. We do have a quorum, Board of Commissioners. With that being said, I'll yield back to you, Chairman Simmons. We do have a quorum tonight on the Board of Commissioners side.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We also have present members of the Planning and Zoning Board. If you would confirm your presence when I call your name. Vice Chair Rob Thomas.
Present.
Teresa Knowles.
Present.
Oric Curry.
Present.
Brandon Penniman.
Present.
Frank Payne.
Present.
And Kirk Nicholson.
Here.
Madam Chairman, we have a quorum also. Allison Duncan, our Planning and Zoning Manager, will now introduce the county staff and Planning and Zoning staff present in the meeting. Ms. Duncan?
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tonight we have with us Deputy County Manager Frederick Perry, Assistant County Manager Tiffany Stewart Stanley, County Attorney Michael Coleman, Director of Development Services James Worthington, Director of the Department of Transportation Miguel Valentine, Senior Zoning Administrator Phil Schaefer, Senior Planner Jaquel Johnson, Planning and Zoning Board Clerk Johanna Womack, and Secretary of the Planning and Zoning Department Kim Waters.
Thank you very much. There is a reversionary clause that applies to each rezoning, and that is the applicant, the agent, or the property owner has 24 months to vest the zoning change after the Board of Commissioners has granted an approval. As far as tonight's procedure, I am the Chairman of Planning and Zoning Board, and I will conduct the public hearing on these matters. Planning and Zoning staff will introduce each application, followed by a full presentation on that application. The applicant or their representative and members of the public in favor of the application will be able to present their information. They will have 2 minutes per person for a total allocated time of 15 minutes to speak on behalf of the application. Members of the public in opposition to the application will be able to present their information. They also will have 2 minutes per person for a total time of 15 minutes allocated. After the opposition completes their input or the time has elapsed, the public hearing will be officially closed. And at this point, the staff will clarify any points that the Planning and Zoning Board have. If the staff is unable to satisfy the board's questions, then the board will ask the applicant or the applicant's representative for clarification. And remember, this is not a time to represent your case. Following that, the Planning and Zoning Board will entertain a motion. Our first agenda item tonight is the approval of the minutes of the September the 6th, 2022 Planning and Zoning and Board of Commissioners meeting. Planning and Zoning Board, you have had these minutes. Are there any comments, questions, or changes? Hearing none, I will call for a vote. All in favor of approving the minutes of the September 6, 2022 regular meeting, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Madam Chairman, I'll throw it over to the Board of Commissioners for the unanimous approval for the minutes of September the 6, 2022.
Thank you so much, Chairman Simmons. Board of Commissioners, you've had an opportunity to review the September 6, 2022 Planning and Zoning and Board of Commissioners combined meeting. Do we have a motion to approve, Board?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second, Board. Any discussion? Being no discussion, Board, certainly we have a motion and a second on the floor. When I call your districts, please respond accordingly. District 1?
Yes.
District 2? District 3?
Yes.
District 4?
Yes.
Chairman, yes. We have a 4-0 unanimous vote and the motion carried. I yield back to you, Chairman Simmons. Our minutes are approved for September 6, 2022.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Our next agenda item, Mr. Johnson, will you present that, please?
Yes. Good afternoon, Board of Commissioners. Good afternoon, P&Z Board. The first item on the agenda is a special use permit for Billy Messer. Mr. Messer is applying for a special use permit for a short-term rental on his property on West Union Hill Road. As you can see on the zoning map, the highlighted portion is Mr. Messer's property. This is an aerial image of the property. The property is accessed from West Union Hill Road, just at the top. It is highlighted in yellow. Mr. Messer currently has a accessory dwelling unit on his property that he would like to list as a short-term rental. A short-term rental is a piece of property that is rented for less than 30 days, and so that classifies as a short-term rental and therefore requires a special use permit in Douglas County.
Can you speak up just a little for us on the end?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Pull it up.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Mr. Messer, the applicant does meet the special use permit criteria, and planning is recommending approval for his request. At this time, staff, as well as the applicant, is open for questions.
Okay, thank you very much. And there were no conditions attached to this, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. At this point in time, I will open the public hearing on this matter. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application, including the applicant or the applicant's representative, please step to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and you will have 2 minutes to make any presentation that you would like.
Hello there. I'm Bill Messer. I'm the applicant. It's just simply we run an Airbnb out of there. We've been very successful doing it, and I just didn't want to. I didn't expect to have to buy a permit, but I didn't want to have any problems. I'll be glad to ask you any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application, please step to the podium. Seeing no one moving, I will close the public hearing in favor and open the public hearing in opposition. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application, please step to the podium, state your name and address for the record. You would have 2 minutes per person for a total of 15 minutes allocated. Seeing no one moving, I will close the public hearing on that and close the public hearing entirely. Planning and Zoning Board, do you have any questions of staff or the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Messer did not give us his address, so if he would clarify his address where he
I live at 9645 West Union Hill Road. I live adjacent to the property. It was originally a guest house. And so, I mean, I look right out my front door at the property.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions, Planning and Zoning Board? Questions or comments from Mr. Messer or staff?
Chairman, Rob Thomas, I have a question for the applicant. Just a couple questions. So how long have you been utilizing this service?
About a year.
About a year now?
Yes, sir.
And why now? Why decide to get the special use permit? With the code enforcement, or you just?
I got a letter.
Got a letter.
I got a letter.
So
You better do something, yeah.
Didn't know.
Okay. Is it pretty consistent as far as the rental?
Yeah, we've been doing pretty well. It's a nice place. It's really nice. My wife handles that, and Airbnb is great to work with. They give you good information, you get good feedback. you get feedback. We've had people from, in fact, the people that just left today were from Toronto. They were here for a wedding. Yeah, it's just been a good experience. I know eventually we'll have a bad one, but so far we've had great experiences with all the people. I mean, they come, they're nice. We have a nice piece of property there, and we also have we have a gate, an automatic gate, so they feel secure when they stay there.
Yeah, I see you on 10 acres, so you have plenty of land.
I'll tell you, yeah, it's on 10 acres, yes, sir.
Okay, well, hopefully your luck will continue.
I don't want to jinx myself, but yeah.
That's the only question I have.
Any other questions, planning and zoning?
I have a question, Mr. Master. Tell us a little bit about the house itself. How many bedrooms? Is there kitchen? So forth.
Yes, sir. It's probably, with the porch, it's probably about 1,000 square feet, maybe a little bit more. And the way we set it up, you walk in and you've got a nice living area on the left with a sofa and television and that kind of thing, and then a nice bedroom. To the right, that's a closet and a bathroom, and then we have a full kitchen.
Okay, one bedroom?
Yeah, just one bedroom. It really, it's really designed to accommodate just two people. But, people with one child or something, it works fine too. But normally it's just for adults. And we've seen that works out pretty well too.
Okay.
A lot of people just wanting to get away for a few days.
It's not a party house, right?
No, that ain't gonna, no. And I understand the concern about that. I work in Carrollton. I work for the fire department, and we see problems that come up when people aren't engaged in their Airbnb. But no, it's right in my front door, and my wife does a very good job of screening the people. I mean, they'll communicate back and forth before they finally book. So yeah, party house ain't gonna fly. Yeah, I can assure you that. It'll upset our poodles. That ain't gonna work. So.
Well, good. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Messer, this is Curry. I have a question for you. Right here. Right.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Nope. Right here. Right straight ahead. Right here.
That's you. Okay. Man, I couldn't figure where you're coming from. Yes, sir.
The question is, I noticed that you have a lake. Is there a lake on the property, or it have access to the lake? And if so, does they have canoes or things of that on the lake?
We have 3 ponds.
Oh, ponds, okay.
Yeah, that's a small pond there that my father built 35 years ago, and then it spills into a little larger pond, and it spills into a larger pond than that. And we on the porch, we have some rod and reels and some tackle in case they choose to fish. We do have canoes and kayaks, and if they were to request to use them, we would monitor them, but we would let them use them, but we haven't had that request.
Okay.
Yeah, some people, you'll see them out fishing, but usually in the evening, they just enjoy sitting out on the little dock.
Okay. I didn't know if it was a lake or a pond, so
Yeah,
since you clarified
it's a tricky definition. One's a lake, one's a pond, but they're both, the ponds are about 1 acre, and the big one, the bottom one's probably about 2.5 acres.
Okay then. This was a question about
Yeah,
that.
absolutely,
Thank
no problem, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions, board? Hearing none, Madam Chairman, I'll throw it over to the Board of Commissioners for any questions you folks may have.
Thank you so much, Chairman Simmons. Board of Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant or the staff? Commissioner Guider, you have the floor.
Mr. Messer, excuse me, are there any fish in the pond?
Yes.
Okay.
The top pond is just what the good Lord sends. I mean, but the middle two, we stopped them from the state back about 15 years ago.
Okay.
We went to Somerville, and we have bass and brim and a few catfish, and then in the middle pond's mostly bass and brim. So
I'm
it wouldn't let
very
me have any trout. I'm a little too far south for trout. So.
Yeah. I'm very familiar with that area and everything. And staff, could someone from staff come? Special use permit, does that mean you will be watching him for a year and then coming back? Will he have to come back next year?
Well, no, not for a special use permit, for your business license, that's annual. You have to renew that. But as far as special use permit, no.
Okay.
It's one time.
All right. And so he adheres to all of our code requirements and everything as far as septic tank or whatever? And
Yes.
okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Messer. I yield back.
Okay. Thank you so much, Commissioner Guider. Commissioner Carthen, you have the floor.
Mr. Messer,
Oh, I'm sorry.
you're almost done.
That's fine, no problem.
So can you tell me a little bit about parking, and do your neighbors know what you're doing, and have you talked to anybody regarding that?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
The letters went out, and I
Okay.
made contact with all the neighbors. Oh, yeah, sorry. The letters went out, and I made contact with all the neighbors, and they're familiar with it. You know, as far as parking, you know, it's really, we have 30 acres there. So there's adequate parking. Generally, they park in the upper parking lot where they have access to the porch. So that's really not been a problem, not at all. So, yeah.
Got you. And with safety, you will be notifying the sheriff so that they can like keep watch over you or come up and down. I'm just always curious about Airbnbs.
Okay.
Knowing that, you know, sometimes things can get out of hand. I know your wife is not going to let it be a party house. I see her shaking her head. But just, you know, safety precautions. 'Cause
Yeah,
we want you to run a business, but we also want, you know,
Right.
everybody to be safe.
My wife does an excellent job, like I said, communicating. She checks them in. She shows them everything. We're pretty much engaged with them until they get settled in.
Okay.
We're not gonna, put up with much of anything out of line.
Oh, she's getting ready to tell us.
She gonna tell us.
Also, through Airbnb, they do a screening process, so before anybody is approved, they have to have a profile, they have to have a certain number of recommendations, and so I can see all of that information before I accept them. And we have declined some people because it just didn't look appropriate, or I did, what they said they were coming for didn't quite ring true. So we have the opportunity to decline or accept the applicants on an individual basis.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr.
Okay.
Messer. I yield, Madam Chair.
Okay, would you like her to, you can, if you could, Mrs. Messer, if you could come back and state your name and give us your address. Thank you. We would greatly appreciate it.
Beth Messer, 9645 West Union Hill Road, Villa Rica.
Thank you, Mrs. Messer. Any other questions, Board? You say no, Commissioner Mitchell? I just had one question for you, Mr. Messer. We talked about the pond, the lake, the pond, and you know I'm healthcare related and always thinking of safety. How close is the pond to the house? I'm thinking maybe if someone bring a toddler with them or something. I'm just wondering.
From the front deck, I'd say 40 feet maybe.
Okay, because you know how babies walk off and things like that. You could, Mrs. Messer?
Absolutely, thank you. Also, they have to tell us if they're bringing children ahead of time or pets, so we know that in advance.
Yes, ma'am.
But I retired from the Girl Scouts, and I was a lifeguard, so we have safety equipment there. We have ring buoys that we can throw out. Also, we have life jackets that we would have if any of the boats were there, and we have a variety of sizes, children, youth, and adults.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, you answered my question. I'm assuming there are no other questions, Board? Okay. I yield back to you, Chairman Simmons.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Planning and Zoning Board, you have heard the questions, the comments. Do I have a recommendation, please?
This is Frank Payne. I make a motion to approve application S 2022-62, a request for a special use permit to allow for a short-term rental as presented by staff.
I second it, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion and I have a second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor of approving S 2022-62, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Madam Chairman, we have approved S 2022-62 unanimously to the board, please.
Thank you so much, Chairman Simmons. Board of Commissioners, you've heard all the questions and answers. Do we have a motion?
Yes, ma'am. I make a motion to approve application S 2022-62, a request for a special use permit to allow for a short-term rental as presented by staff.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Board of Commissioners, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? We have a motion and a second. When I call your districts, please respond accordingly. District 1? Yes. District 2? District 3, I apologize, I'm missing one tonight. Yes. District 4?
Yes.
Chairman, yes. We have a 4-0 unanimous vote, and the motion carries for the approval of S 2022-62. And I yield back the floor to you, Chairman Simmons.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Messer, we wish you the best in this venture.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Let's see, Mr. Schaefer, you have the next agenda item, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, so this evening, we have Mr. and Mrs. Gray. Jason Gray is here for a special use permit S 2022-63, request for a special use permit to allow an agricultural-related activity with camping from their home property in the RA zone. The district, it's located at 6525 Phillips Mill Road. The property, the request is to provide a short-term rental, but the short-term rental is, in fact, a travel trailer, so that it does not meet the definition of structure, so we wanted to accommodate Mr. Gray in their request, so we look at this as an agricultural-related camping activity. And that way, we can allow for the camping or glamping, in this case, because it is a rather nice trailer, to be able to happen on that property. One of the issues is that you worry about these being able to be seen from the road or from neighboring properties. This is highly wooded. It's very difficult to see in, as you'll see from the picture, so it's quite remote. And if you wanted an intensely woodsy experience in a glamping situation, this would be an ideal spot for anyone who wanted to do that. The property, as you can see on Phillips Mills, on the west side of the property, their house is to the rear of the property. This is the travel trailer that they're using. This is the driveway into the property. And this is Phillips Mill. We're looking south on Phillips Mill, just before we got rained on, actually, that day. And that's the notice sign. Staff has reviewed the proposal, and against the criteria, it meets all the criteria for a special use permit, and we are recommending approval with findings that the use will not modify the land use plan or the intent, purpose, or spirit of the Douglas County Unified Development Code, and the granting of the special use would not adversely affect the public welfare. The conditions are that the agricultural, number one, the agricultural activities shall comply with Section 348F of the Unified Development Code. Number two, the proposed location of the agritourism rental accommodations requires review and approval of permanent connection to an on-site septic system capacity by the Douglas Environmental Health Department prior to occupancy. And the location of the rental unit is permissible at the proposed location, again, subject to the Health Department review and confirmation that the septic conditions are appropriate at this location for permanent installation. The intent, and number four, the intent of the required setbacks for agricultural-related activities for tourist accommodations are considered fulfilled at the proposed location, and a variance wouldn't be required. There are some conditions in the code that require a larger setback, but because of the woods and because of the situation, the boards are allowed to grant the permission to be where he's asked to be, and he does not need to do a variance once you see the special use permit is appropriate at that location. And that we will go out in a year, Commissioner Guider, just as you were alluding to previously, then we'll inspect just to make sure it's compliant with all the conditions. If it is, it'll be a permanent approval, but again, a business license at each annual renewal so that they can conduct business in the county. And that concludes my presentation. And Mr. Gray is here.
Mr. Schaefer, is this special use, does it go with the property or does it
with
go
the
with
land.
the owner?
Runs with the land.
Runs with the land. So should it be sold, the special use would continue? Okay, thank you.
Not on residential, no.
Okay, well, at this point in time, I will open the public hearing on this matter. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application, including the applicant or the applicant's representative, please step to the podium. You would have 2 minutes per person for a total time of 15 minutes. Go ahead, sir.
Well, good evening, Board of Commissioners and the Planning and Zoning Board. My name is Jason Gray, and my address is 6525 Phillips Mill Road. And what we have is a camper that's out on our property for Airbnb. And the whole purpose behind that is to give people an experience of camping. You know, a lot of times people want to go camping. We're campers, my wife and I, we do a lot of camping. And we just thought it'd be a great idea to introduce that in, where we are. We're out in the woods, and, people who want to go camping but don't know nothing about camping get a chance to experience that at our property, and it's been pretty good. We've had quite a few families, little kids love it. And it just gives, it gives people the opportunity to go camping and not have to worry about moving the trail or anything. It's like what they say, the best camper is, mobile home is somebody else's mobile home or somebody else's pool or all that. So, but that's pretty much what we're doing with it, is just to give people an experience at the same time.
Okay, Mr. Gray, thank you very much. If you would just stand by, the board may have some questions.
Okay.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Seeing no one else moving, I will close the public hearing in favor and open the public hearing in opposition. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application, please approach the podium. You would have 2 minutes per person for a total allocated time of 15 minutes. Seeing no one moving, I will close the public hearing on this matter. Planning and Zoning Board, do you have any questions of staff or Mr. Gray?
Mr. Brandon Penniman, I have a question for you, Mr. Gray. There's 4 conditions that were read into you today. Are you aware of those conditions? Are you okay with them?
Yes.
Specifically, the condition with the on-site septic system?
Yes, I'm aware of it, and I'm okay with it.
Okay.
I mean, currently, right now, we have it tied into our septic system for dumping purposes, but yeah.
What have you been using for the waste prior to this?
Oh, well, prior to that, we weren't renting it out at all, because trying to tote a, what do you call it, portable tank just can't do it. So we did not do that. So we only did it after we had the pump station connected to it.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
it. Thank you.
Yeah.
This is Rob Tyler. I just want to make sure you're clear about the condition. They're saying you have to put a additional septic tank there. I know you said you had to tie it into what you currently have, right? Is that what you just said?
Yeah, that's what I said,
Okay.
yeah.
So you understand that the condition states that you have to have a separate,
Well, that's, is that
is
what?
that what you're saying? Yeah. We asked that question.
No, as long as the health department is approving what he's doing, that's what the condition was intending to accomplish, not a whole separate septic system, brand new for this specifically. If he's got a pump situation, then if the health department's good with that, then we're fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So health department already approved it, seeing what you currently have set up?
Not yet.
Okay. So that's my point.
Yeah, not yet,
Okay.
no.
So
That'd
if
be
it's
the next step.
All right. And that's what he was getting at. Make sure you understand that condition.
Okay.
That's
Any
all.
other questions, Planning and Zoning Board?
Mr. Gray, this is Ord Curry. You said that, I have 2 questions. One question is, have you rented out before, or you haven't rented out?
No, we have rented it out.
You have rented it out?
Yes.
Okay, okay. And how old is the trailer? How many?
It's a 2005.
2005? Okay. That's it.
Any other questions, Planning and Zoning Board?
Yes, Mr. Gray.
Yes.
How many acres do you have?
We have 5 acres.
5 acres. Do you do tours? How, if someone would come out and utilize the camper, do you tell them where to go, or?
No, whenever a guest comes, they're pretty much confined to the camper. A lot of times, people just want to get away from it, and our property is so remote that people just look at it as a getaway.
So you have a fire pit, or?
We got a little fire pit, a picnic table, a barbecue grill, everything to simulate being out in the state park.
Okay. All right.
Some horseshoes. What's the other game that would? Connect Four. Not Connect Four, I'm sorry. No, not Connect Four, can't do that.
Cornhole.
Cornhole?
We got cornhole, yeah.
Everybody's got.
But, yeah, Connect Four, yeah, the giant Connect Four, I'm thinking. Yeah. I'm thinking Twister.
What's the length of time that you could rent it for? As long as you want to, but do you have a time period?
No, we don't like to do anything over maybe 7 days, because anything longer than that, the wear and tear on the camper is just more than what I would like to have. So it's very short term, usually a weekend, maybe a week, but nothing longer than that. That's something we just don't want to encourage.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions, Planning and Zoning Board? Hearing none, Madam Chair, I'll throw it over to the Board of Commissioners for any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you so much, Chairman Simmons. Board of Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant or the staff at this time? Commissioner Guider, you have the floor.
Yes, Mr. Gray, I'm familiar with your road too. A dear friend of mine passed away that lived probably across the street from you, Mr. Karate.
Yes.
But anyway, how many does the camper sleep?
It can sleep, let's see here, 6.
It can sleep 6? And how many's in your family?
Four of us, two
Four of
adults
you.
and two kids.
Okay, so I'm assuming the existing septic tank is adequate for that number?
I would think so, yeah, because whenever we have guests, you know, if I close the tank, I mean, it's very rare that they ever fill up the tank, you know, so it's more than adequate.
Okay. I guess the staff has already checked that out anyway. Is that right? Phil? I can't see you, Phil.
Sorry, yeah, that was the whole point of the condition. So just to verify, the health department will have to make sure that it meets the standards.
Okay. And where do you advertise, Mr. Gray?
Advertise on Airbnb.
Airbnb?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the only platform.
All right. It's a very beautiful area.
Yes,
And it's
it
a
is.
dead-end road, so it's, you don't have a lot of traffic, but you can't see the trailer or the camper from the road anyway.
Oh, no, that was the whole purpose. Even when we built the house back, we didn't want anyone to see us from the front of the road, so we built it back purposely.
Okay. All right, with that, I yield back.
Okay, thank you so much, Commissioner Guider. Any other questions? Commissioner Mitchell, you have the floor.
Just one question. So, okay, so are you only planning on using that one camper, or, and this may be a question for Mr. Schaefer, this special land use only deals with that particular one camper, or could he have multiple campers or out on this particular lot?
This is, you could state a restriction if you wish, but it was strictly for
Oh,
the one.
I'm not trying to restrict it. I'm just making sure that.
Yeah, this is only for the one that's there.
Okay. So, and so with that being said, so you're okay with that one, but however, I don't think if I'm hearing you correctly, Mr. Schaefer, we're not restricting this. So he could bring multiple ones as long as its health department approves kind of how he disperses waste and so on.
In order to have more than the one, I think we would have to come back to you all for a site plan revision. And I think what we're approving this evening is a site plan, because we're actually saying the location of where he's put the trailer.
Got it.
The one trailer is actually appropriate, and he doesn't need a variance for anything.
Okay,
But if you
good
come
enough.
and do more trailers, I assume we're going to have to come back and do a site plan variation so that you all can.
And we won't speak for him. We'll let him speak for himself. I'm assuming that you're only trying to deal with this one, not in the future several ones.
No, I'm not trying to do several right now. That means cutting down trees and all that stuff.
Understood. And how many acres you say you had there?
We got 5 acres.
5 acres, okay, so you got more than enough to kind of cover that one. And so if I heard you correctly, you can sleep or deal with 8 people in that camper? It didn't look that big, and maybe it's me though, but.
No, 6 people.
Oh, 6 you
Yeah,
said, okay.
Yeah, not 8, 6 people.
Okay, all right. Thank you again. Madam Chair, I'll yield back.
All right, thank you so much, Commissioner Mitchell. Any other questions for our applicant? Board. Okay. I yield back to you, Chairman Simmons.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Board of Commissioners. Planning and Zoning Board, you have heard the presentations, you've heard the discussion. I have a motion.
Mr. Brandon Penham, I'd like to make a motion to approve application S 2022-63, request for a special use permit to allow an agricultural-related activity with camping from the home in a RA zoning district with the findings as presented by staff.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Or Curry, second.
I have a motion and I have a second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the question. All in favor of approving S 2022-63 as stated in the motion with conditions, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Madam Chairman, Board of Commissioners, we have a recommendation to approve S 2022-63, unanimous.
Thank you so much, Chairman Simmons. Board of Commissioners, you've heard all the questions and answers. Do we have a motion?
Yes, ma'am. I make a motion to approve application S 2022-63 with the findings and conditions as approved by the Planning and Zoning Board.
Do we have a second? Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Board, any discussion? We have a motion and a second. When call your districts, please respond accordingly. District 1?
Yes.
District 3?
Yes.
District 4?
Yes.
Chairman, yes. We have a 4 unanimous vote, and the motion carries to approve S 2022-63. And I yield back to you, Chairman Simmons.
Thank you very much, Board of Commissioners. Mr. Ms. Gray, we wish you the best going forward on this venture. The next item, Mr. Johnson, please.
Yes, the next item is a rezoning and future land use map amendment for Villa Crest LLC. The applicant is proposing turning to this facility into a civic club / lodge, a moose lodge, on 14851 Veterans Memorial Highway. On your screen, you have the zoning map. And this is an aerial image of the facility. It is an old AT&T facility. AT&T primarily use it for their training. And as you can see, it is surrounded on both sides and the rear at Villa Rica, the city of Villa Rica. This is a concept plan for the facility. As you can see on the plan, there are two towers at the rear. In the middle, you can see the actual facility. This is the front of the facility, going from Veterans Memorial Highway. And this is a photo of the 2 towers at the rear of the facility. Before you, I have the future land use map. It is currently, for our future land use, is currently a, make sure I say this correctly, telecommunication, no, I'm sorry.
Transportation, communication, and utilities.
Transportation, communication, utilities. And they're proposing to move it to mixed-use corridor. Everything around the facility within our jurisdiction is already zoned mixed-use corridor. And so it being, the future land use is mixed-use corridor, so the fact that the applicant wants to change that kind of just fits in with the rest of it. They do meet the zoning criteria. They're proposing the zoning be rezoned from RA to CG Commercial General. Staff recommends approval for the future land use map amendment following these findings. The character of this area has been evolving towards an area of mixed residential and non-residential uses. The zoning district and land use permissible in the proposed mixed-use corridor designation are generally compatible with the types of districts available and in this designation or under the Commercial Development Review Committee process would be made generally compatible via screening and buffering requirements as mandated by the UDC. The proposed mixed-use corridor character is generally consistent with the intent of the Comprehensive Future Land Use Plan to ensure compatibility and unified development within specified areas of the county. And for the rezoning from residential agriculture, RA, to general commercial, CG, staff recommends approval based on the findings with conditions. The rezoning and amendment are consistent with the Douglas County Comprehensive Plan and the intent, purpose, or spirit of Douglas County Unified Development Code. A negative impact to surrounding properties will not result from the rezoning. The granting of the rezoning will not significantly adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare and represents best planning practices. For the conditions, the property shall be subject to the requirements of the Unified Development Code, Article 3, Section 343, letter I, in regard to the removal of antenna or towers should the existing telecommunication facility on the property not be operated for a continuous period of 6 months or more. At this time, staff and the applicant will have any questions.
Great, thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. At this point in time, I will open the public hearing on this matter. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application, including the applicant or the applicant's representative, please step to the podium. You would have 2 minutes per person for a total allocated time of 15 minutes. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, and good evening. My name is George Chafin. I reside at 5551 Kings Highway, Douglasville, Georgia. I'm the current administrator of the Mableton Moose Lodge. We have been there for 60 years, and it was time to move. We were in a heavy industrial area with Google on one side, FedEx on the other side, and it was very hard to get our members to come down to that area. So we chose to move to an area with a bigger residential area in the surrounding area, and we thought Douglasville or in Douglas County would be a perfect place. This building would be perfect for our use. It is a Moose Lodge. We are a fraternal organization. We are members only, although we do have some open to the public events, such as bingo. We hold a license with the Secretary of State to run bingo. We also had to give up our license when we moved, a COAM license from the Georgia Lottery and also a Georgia Lottery license. We do plan to seek to have those licenses reinstated once we get into the new facility. We will be building out a commercial kitchen. We'll be serving our members and also the public during the bingo. We will also have a social quarters. That's one of the main areas of the Moose Lodge, is the social quarters. And that will be a bar, so we will be seeking an alcohol permit in Douglas County. All of this has to be built out. There's going to be some renovation. We don't think it's going to be too extensive, but the main thing would be we're probably going to have to extend some parking out in front at a future time. There's room for about 60 cars now. We're probably going to need more than that over time as we rebuild our membership in Douglas County, and I hope you look favorable on our request for rezoning.
Thank you, Mr. Chapin. Before you step down, you heard the condition that was attached to the rezoning should we get there. Are you in agreement with that condition about those antenna?
I don't know if I fully heard it. I'm hard of hearing, but I understand that the antennas are there and they're under a long-term contract that was set up by the previous owner, AT&T. And I've read through that contract, and it looks pretty ironclad that, we don't have much say-so in what happens there.
Right, but the idea is, as long as they're in use, it's fine. But should the contracts go away and they sit abandoned for 6 months, then they have to be taken down by the property owner.
That would be our preference, sir.
Okay.
That's valuable land space, and we would like to have them gone.
Okay, so you are in agreement with that
Yes,
condition?
sir.
Okay, thank you very much. If you would just stand by, we may have some more questions. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application, please step to the podium, state your name and address for the record. You would have 2 minutes per person.
Bowen Kendrick, 3215 Bakewell Street, Douglasville, Georgia. And we represent the current owners of the property, the sellers in this, Villa Crest. And that's our understanding of those towers as well. I mean, I think they've been there since the 70s at this point. As from what I can remember, I wasn't there when that would have occurred, but that's what I've been told.
Well, Unified Development Code has changed since then with reference to antenna.
Exactly. And from what I understand, too, that lease kind of continues in 5-year terms until like 2075. So I suspect that if they want to out of it, they can do that. And I think they have a lot of options on how to handle that. But to our end, at least, it looks like it is in this enclave where it was zoned that particular way for residential agricultural. This would fit the scheme of everything that's set up there now. That's kind of where everything is heading. It's on its little pocket there, and this might bring everything more into line with what everyone's sort of looking to do in that corridor. But yes, he added most of what I would have added as far as its use going forward. And I'd be happy to answer any questions on behalf of the seller, if you should have it.
Okay, thank you very much. I would just stand by.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application, please approach the podium. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing in favor and open the public hearing in opposition. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application, please approach the podium. Seeing no one moving, I will close the public hearing on this matter. Planning and Zoning Board, you have heard the discussion. Do you have any questions of staff or of applicant?
This is Brandon Penham. I have a question for the applicant. How you doing? Good. First question is, can you just give me a little bit more background on the Moose Lodge, like your purpose or your mission? I heard you say it was a fraternal organization, so I understand there may be not certain information you can't divulge, but your overall mission and purpose as an organization?
Okay, the Moose Lodge has been around since the early 20s. Was founded in Chicago, Illinois, is where the headquarters is at now. And there's three main goals of the Moose Lodge. One of them is to support Moose Heart, which is located in Chicago, Illinois. It is a home for children. Children are there from the cradle through high school, where they give them a second chance. They come from a broken home or a circumstance that was not their fault and they needed help. And so they go there and they live on campus. It's a beautiful campus, over 500 acres, and they have, I think, around 200 students there at the time. The second one is for Moose Haven, which is a retirement community for Moose members in Orange County, Florida, and is right on the St. Johns River, a beautiful area. So one of our goals is to support both of these Moose endeavors. And the third is community service. That's one of our big things that we like to do. We like to get involved in the community. We'll have fundraisers for different organizations. We'll make donations. We do what we can. I know in our old lodge, we had Adopt a Mile, where we had the mile surrounding our property that we kept clean. And it was kind of a secluded area. And believe me, I've taken my share of mattresses to the dump where people have dumped them on the side of the road. And so, we like to get involved, and we want to be part of Douglas County. I've been here for 20 years. I love this area, and most of our members are from this area as well. We've had a membership of around 500 10 years ago, but now we're only around 225. And the reason for that, we think, is our location, and that's why we're attempting to move, and we hope to rebuild our membership back to the 500 or 600 range and be a valuable asset to the community.
Awesome. That answers my question. We do have some of those community service opportunities available here in Douglas County. So.
That's outstanding. We're graded on that. Once a quarter, we have to report to Moose International on what we did in community service. And so far, we've always had a passing or excellent rating in that area.
Great. Well, thank you. No further questions.
Any other questions, Planning and Zoning Board?
I have a question for the representative.
Yes.
So, what's the square footage of the building itself?
Ooh, I'm not sure off the top of my head. 12,000?
Is it 12,000 square feet? Okay.
It was used as a
Is it one
training.
level?
I believe they have a couple of levels.
Just
They have
curious.
an underground level.
There's a crawl space under there.
That's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
And it's mostly was used for training for AT&T employees, and they haven't used it for that for about 2 years. So that was their main use of it. It does have a parking facility around the end. If they had to expand it, they do have some room to do so, from what it appears to be.
Well, speaking of expanding, he mentioned putting a commercial kitchen in there. So you have a crawl space, that's good, easy to get the plumbing. But it is on sewer, I assume?
It is.
Okay.
It is on sewer. And it looks like they have plenty of room to do that. That building seems to be almost completely a concrete pour shell building. It's probably, as I was joking, my client's probably nuclear blast proof. So they have a fair amount of room to do that. The structure of the building is not a problem at all. It mostly comes down to how big do they want to have that versus their size of their members. they seem to have a lot of room to use that space. It's pretty utilitarian for what they used it for AT&T.
Okay. And probably more directed to you on this question. You mentioned about having alcohol sales there.
That is correct.
eventually.
Yes, sir.
It is in the county. We could look more into that. I don't think you better do alcohol sale in the county. It's not approved.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question.
Alcohol sales in the county you mentioned?
Yes.
Yeah. You going to be selling food with this, a restaurant, or is this going to be just?
Oh, yes, we have a kitchen. We serve meals to our membership and also to the public. Our bar area is for our members only. We do not sell alcohol to the public.
It's a members only type of?
It's members
okay,
only,
that's
that's
different.
correct.
Okay.
Right.
Different category then.
And as far as the square footage of the 12,000 feet, there's only about 9,500 that's usable. The rest of it, the other 2,500 feet it's kind of set off to the side. It's part of the main structure, but it's unfinished and it has a lot of equipment in it. There is a huge generator, 25 foot long, sitting in there that will probably be there 100 years from now, that we're not going to do anything with. It's just sitting in an unused area. We'll be utilizing about 2,500 square feet, 9,500 square feet.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, good luck to you.
Yes, sir. If you could stay up just for a moment. You mentioned that you have over 200 members presently?
That is correct, yes, around
Okay.
225, I think.
And
so.
you said over 500 at one point?
That is correct, yes, sir.
What's the capacity of the space? How many people would it actually hold?
I don't know how to answer that question. In our bingo area.
You want at least over 500, right? You
Oh,
wanna get that back.
absolutely, absolutely. It is a very huge space. It's a little bigger than the one we came out of. We came out of about 9,000 square feet, and so it's going to be a little bigger than the one we're in now. Plus, we've got a lot more room for storage in this unused area.
Good. Good luck. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And whenever they get their certificate of occupancy, it'll tell them how many people they can put in there.
One other question. Is it sprinkled? Do you have a sprinkler system? Just curious.
There is a sprinkler system, I think, okay?
That will help
I'm not real
capacity.
sure, but I think there is a sprinkler system,
Hopefully it is. Hopefully it is. That will help with the capacity as well.
yes. Now, in putting in the commercial kitchen, of course, we're going by all the rules there, putting in a commercial fire suppression system with a hood and a $20,000 grease trap. We've got to pay for all this somehow.
Any other questions, Planning and Zoning Board? Hearing none, Madam Chairman, I'll throw it over to the Board of Commissioners for any questions they may have.
Thank you so much, Chairman Simmons. Board of Commissioners, do you have any questions at this time for the applicant or the staff? Commissioner Guider?
Yes, sir. My knowledge of the Moose Lodge is limited to what I saw on the sitcom Everybody Loves Raymond. So I'm glad that you explained what a Moose Lodge was. So anyway, so there's no kitchen there now. You're installing the kitchen.
That is correct. There's no kitchen.
And you're going to have to put the grease trap and all that stuff.
Oh, yes, ma'am. We spent a lot of time on what it's going to take to build out that commercial kitchen. We already have all of our own equipment from our old lodge that we now have in storage, but we're going to have plumbing done, electrical, like I say, the grease trap. It's got its own air system, so we're good to go there. But there's a lot of work to be done in the kitchen. The rest of the building, it's just a matter of demolishing a few walls to make a little bigger area for our bingo, open to the public bingo.
Well, you said your membership was 200, but the parking lot only holds 60 cars, so.
Yeah, that is correct. Now, 60 cars will be more than enough for everything except bingo. As we rebuild our membership here and our bingo increases, we do anticipate having to come out into the front lawn area. I don't know if you could see it from the pictures, but there's a couple of 100 feet that it sets back off of the road, and there's ample room to put in another 50 or 60 spaces in front of the building.
And you do understand that to take down those towers, you're going to have probably a crane or something.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, it's going to be costly.
You know-
I just wondered if you could rent out space on the towers to some of these technical or
Well, the people that lease it now
transmitting
do have some parts that they release space on those towers. So it's a completely fenced-off area. We have no access to it. There's no connection from those towers to the building, so they're completely self-sufficient. But yes, we realize it will be expensive to get them removed, and we don't anticipate that happening. But personally, I would like to see them gone at one point in time.
Well, it's going to be costly, though. And I think that was added on. That condition was added on to this at the last minute. So you are aware of that one condition?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
6 months.
And you're okay with it?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. With that, I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Guider. Any other questions? Commissioner Carthen, you have the floor.
This is for staff. Ms. Duncan?
Yes, ma'am.
So, Ms. Duncan, I noticed that we're doing two. One is for a future land use map amendment.
Correct.
Okay, so that one, in regards to our future land map update, is that area included in what we're doing for the overall comprehensive update?
It will be, that's correct.
It will be, and so this will be compatible to what we are looking, I know you can't predict the future, but what we are looking at doing.
I believe it will be. And again, if for some reason we get to that point and it's not, we can address it at the time. But I think that what we're dealing with in this instance is a very old structure. When Mr. Johnson and I were looking at this, we got back to the 1970s on our old aerial images, and it was still showing up then. When we got back to the 50s, we didn't see it, right? But the point being, this building has been there for a minute. I think that the existing classification is a result of the fact that it has been used as a telecommunication structure for that long. And I think the existing residential agricultural zoning classification is just a legacy of the fact that it's just kind of always been there. So essentially, I would say that this is probably a use that's been out there for the better part of 50 years, and we haven't given a lot of thought to it. But I think that the mixed-use corridor anticipates sort of that residential or commercial kind of transitional area in there, and I do think that it is an appropriate classification, particularly given that it is largely surrounded by the city limits of Villa Rica. That I cannot explain exactly why that was left out. I can't answer that, but we do think that is an appropriate classification for this area.
Thank you. And to the applicant?
I'm sorry, the applicant?
The applicant.
Okay.
Your renovations, will they include any exterior work? Are you anticipating that?
No, there is no exterior work other than a future expansion of the parking lot. We will be putting a sign out front in the lawn area. But no other outside work.
No other outside work. And this is maybe how far back from the road?
I'm going to say the building itself is 250 foot off the road. I haven't checked it, but it's a good ways.
It's a good ways. Got you.
It is fenced in, and there's a electronic gate in front of the property. So we would have to move that gate down probably about 50 foot when we decide to increase the parking lot.
Got you. Thank you so much. With that, Madam Chair, I yield.
Okay, thank you so much, Commissioner Carthen. Okay, any other questions, Board? Being none, I yield back to you, Chairman Simmons.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. At this point in time, Planning and Zoning Board, we have two matters to take up. The first one would be the map amendment. Do I have a recommendation for the map amendment, please?
Mr. Brandon Penniman, I make a motion to approve application M 2022-05, a request for a future land use map amendment from TCU to MUC with the findings as presented by staff.
It's Rob Thomas, I second it.
Is this map amendment 05 or 06? So we've got both of them on the sheet.
Okay, I'll restate my motion. I make a motion to approve application M 2022-06.
Six?
A request for a future land use map amendment from TCU to MUC with the findings as presented by staff.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Rob Thomas, I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Planning and Zoning Board. Hearing none, I will call for a motion. All in favor of approving M 2022-06, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. The Planning and Zoning Board recommends approval of M 2022-06 map amendment.
Thank you so much, Chairman Simmons. Board of Commissioners, you've heard all the questions and answers. Do we have a motion?
Yes, ma'am. I make a motion to approve application M 2022-06 as with the findings and the one condition as specified by the Board of Planning and Zoning and approved by them. Thank you.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second, Board. Any discussion? We have a motion and a second. When I call your districts, please respond. District 1?
Yes.
District 3?
Yes.
District 4?
Yes.
Chairman, yes. We have a 4-0 unanimous vote, and the motion carries too. And the motion carries for M 2022-06. And I yield back to you, Chairman Simmons.
Thank you very much, Board of Commissioners. Planning and Zoning Board, the next item is the zoning, rezoning for the property. Do I have a motion on that, please?
Chairman, it's Rob Thomas. I'd like to make a motion to approve application Z 2022-64, request for rezoning from RA to CG with the findings and conditions as presented by staff.
Thank you very much. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion, Planning and Zoning Board? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote on the motion to approve Z 2022-64. Please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Recommendation from Planning and Zoning Board for Z 2022-64 is unanimous approval.
Thank you, Chairman Simmons, Board of Commissioners. Once again, you've heard all the questions and answers. Do we have a motion?
Yes, ma'am. I make a motion to approve application Z 2022-64 with the findings and the conditions and as approved by the Planning and Zoning Board.
Okay, thank you so much, Commissioner Guider. We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion, Board? We have a motion and a second. When I call your districts, please respond accordingly. District 1?
Yes.
District 3?
Yes.
District 4?
Yes.
Chairman, yes. We have a 4-0 unanimous vote, and the motion carries to approve Z 2022-64. And I yield back to you, Chairman Simmons.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman and Board of Commissioners. Mr. Chafin and Mr. Messer, we wish you, Mr. Kendrick, we wish you the best going forward with this matter. And are you going to put up signs that says caution, moose crossing?
Yeah, right. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
What's the plural of moose? Mooses.
Mooses.
Mr. Schaefer, you have our next agenda item, please.
Mr. Chairman, yes, so the next agenda item is Trayton Homes. We have two requests here. We have a future land use map amendment, M 2022-07, and rezoning Z 2022-65. The request is for the map amendment from Neighborhood Village Center to urban residential, and an amendment to the PRD that was approved a couple of years ago for modifying the plans that were approved from age-restricted senior housing to a non-age-restricted single-family homes and townhomes located at Stewart Mill and West Stewart Mill Roads. The property is 10.2 acres. Subject property is on the west side of West Stewart Mill, north of Stewart Mill Road. At their intersections, the property is vacant and forested and somewhat overgrown. As I mentioned, the property was previously approved under Z 2021-22 for the planned residential district zoning on April 6, 2021. The applicant is proposing to amend the original approval for 110 senior independent living apartments to develop as an unrestricted single-family attached and detached housing product. They would establish a 74-unit townhome community with 16 additional single-family detached homes for a total of 90 dwelling units. This is the zoning map showing the location at the confluence of Yancey Road, just above the traffic light at Stewart Mill and West Stewart Mill. And here's an aerial of the property so that you can see it is still densely wooded. This is a picture looking westbound on Stewart Mill at the light with Yancey and West Stewart Mills so that you can see the property off to the right. And here is looking north across Stewart Mill into the West Stewart Mill intersection from Yancey below at the gas station. This is looking south from West Stewart Mill to the Yancey Stewart Mill light. The property is immediately on your right. As you can see, there is a ravine. The new modifications to that intersection that the county spent quite a lot of money fixing have really improved the traffic flow at that intersection, but we do still have a grade change, so there will be no access to the property at this area or along Stewart Mill itself. Instead, the property will be accessed here from West Stewart Mill a little bit before you get to the school. And so you see the school warning sign here, the light flashing sign. The property access point is approximately where we're standing to take the photo. This is looking, again, eastbound along West Stewart Mill. Again, there's the traffic warning signal for the westbound traffic in the end of school zone. The entrance would be approximately there. Here is the site plan to show you about where that entrance is and about how the homes would be laid out in terms of townhomes versus single-family homes. And this is a view of some of the product that they were proposing to place on the property. Again, townhomes and single-family detached. Again, here's more townhomes, and they did supply floor plans. The traffic analysis that they submitted does show that as opposed to the senior housing, the traffic is about 736 total cars per day, trips per day, versus the somewhere in the 350, 400 range for senior housing per day. So it does double the traffic. As far as the future land use map amendment, it was decided that it would be more appropriate to place this in the urban residential category rather than the neighborhood village center, because the senior housing behaved more like an institutional type of facility. And so our view was institutional type uses would fit in that commercial neighborhood village center concept, whereas just straight urban residential would not. So we want them to rezone the future land use category into a more residential oriented flavor and character area. So that's the reasoning behind the future land use map amendment. I know some of you remember we did not do that on that original approval. So that's the reason why we're asking for that this evening. In reviewing the criteria for the zoning analysis, it does meet the criteria for the rezoning, and for the future land use map amendment, we are recommending approval of M 2022-07 with two findings: that the character of this area has been evolving towards a higher intensity of residential development for many years, and B, the proposed urban residential character area at this location would generally be consistent with the intent of the comprehensive future land use plan to ensure compatible and unified development within specified areas of the county. And then for the rezoning, staff is also recommending approval of the rezoning Z 2022-65 with the following findings: that A, the rezoning will not modify the intent, purpose, or spirit of the Douglas County Unified Development Code. B, the proposed zoning is consistent with the comprehensive future land use plan categorization of this property as within the urban residential area, incorporating mixed density residential and limited commercial uses. And C, the residential uses permissible in this proposed zone district are generally compatible with surrounding properties. D, the granting of the rezoning will not adversely affect public health, safety, or welfare. Now, I am recommending some conditions on the rezoning itself, and the conditions are as follows. Number one, the applicant shall submit to the Development Review Committee, DRC, for review and consideration the specific site development and access management plans to address the development standards in the UDC and the concerns and requirements expressed in the specific agency impact statements reviewed in the staff report dated October 4, 2022. Two, An easement agreement to provide the public sewer line connection will be required prior to approving any land disturbance activity. 3, a westbound left turn queuing lane and an eastbound deceleration lane and acceleration lane shall be provided at the entrance along West Stewart Mill to provide safe ingress and egress from the site. Number 4, the Cemetery Commission has provided documentation of the possible presence of human remains. The Commission is requiring, per Chapter 6, Article 19 of the Code of Ordinances, evaluation of their preliminary findings by qualified archaeologists prior to proceeding with any land disturbance activity. And number 5, additional landscaping to be approved by the Development Services Director shall be required along the exterior frontages where the homes have facades facing outward from the development to offset the loss of the traditional berm and landscape barriers typically employed for screening. That was our last condition of approval. And with that, I yield back to you, Chairman Simmons. That's our presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schaefer. At this point in time, I'll open the public hearing on this matter. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application, please step to the podium, state your name and address for the record. You would have 2 minutes per person for an allocated time of 15 minutes.
Good evening, members of the board and commission. My name is Aaron McCullough with HRC Engineers. Our address is 6554 Church Street, Douglasville, Georgia, 30134, right downtown next to the wonderful Ace Hardware that everyone visits. So we are the engineers on this project. Our client, Trayton Homes, could not be here tonight, so they asked us to stand here and represent them on this rezoning matter. And we are excited about this project, as is our client. We spent a lot of time and effort changing the plan on this to try to help fit the fabric of the neighborhood a little bit and also balance that with our client's needs, because the current zoning is the 110-unit apartment senior living complex. They do not build those. They do not own, operate, and manage those. So we have changed this PRD and asking for an amendment to a more neighborhood-type development with 74 attached townhomes and 16 detached single-family homes. Something that we are excited about the project is, if you see right in the center of the project, we've got what we are affectionately calling Central Park there. That park, I don't know if you've got a plan in front of you, but it's centered around the neighborhood. The scale on the map doesn't exactly show the size of that park. It's about 2 football fields long and approximately a football field wide. So we think, and our client thinks, that's a great amenity to have to create some community within this little neighborhood. So we thank you for your time, and we look forward to some questions.
Okay, before you go,
Yes, sir.
the 5 conditions, are you in agreement with those 5 conditions?
Yes, sir, Mr. Simmons. We have read the full staff report, those conditions, and at this time, we take no issue with any of the conditions.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
I just had to get that on record. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. You would have 2 minutes. Seeing no one moving, I will close the public hearing in favor, open the public hearing in opposition. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. You would have 2 minutes per person for a total allocated time of 15 minutes. Go ahead.
Hey, y'all, I'm a little nervous. My name is Amy Boyce. I live in Arbor Station, 8990 Laurel Drive. I have concerns of this just because of the school systems and the schools. Arbor Station is the elementary school there. It's overcrowded. They still have trailers there. The senior living, you wouldn't have the effect on the school system. Seniors, it'd be for seniors. There's no children. So that's my concern there. They're saying more cars. Children walk that road. They get across the street from the apartments going to school, the traffic. That's just my concern. Is, everyone, I've lived in Douglas County since '74. I've seen the changes, and right now we're really overpopulated. Our schools are overpopulated. I don't know if y'all have children or grandchildren, But, walking in the halls, it's hard to get to class. So that's my concern. It's just the school's right there, Arbor Station's right there, and they've had a trailer there for years that kids can't even go to a classroom. They have to go to a trailer to go to school. So that's why I'm against it, just the education value of kids.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Boyd.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. You will have 2 minutes, sir. Go ahead.
My name is Filbert Smith. My address is 3001 Gold Creek Drive, Villa Rica, and I'm speaking as a member of St. Julian's Church, which this property will butt up against. And so I think we have questions. The first thing is that first we maybe noticed that something was happening was the pink surveyor tape. And then the second thing that we noticed, that I noticed recently, was the yellow zoning meeting signs. And so we do not know how this will impact us. And so I would like time and consideration for somebody to give us some information about what this project is. I mean, I understand it's a housing development, but to give us time to see how it's going to impact us, because that property will butt up right against ours in the back of our property. So it will impact us. It would be great if we had those conditions that you put on it so that we could bring it to the governing body of the church and ask them about it and get their input on it. But yeah, that's what I want to say, is that I think we need to have more information to see how, we would like to have more information to see how this will impact us.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. You also would have 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Celeste Christopher. I'm at 6038 Sumter Drive. That is 30135. My concern, because I travel this road every single day, particularly between the hours of 8 a.m. and 2:45, is the amount of traffic that will be on that road. We know that there are going to be townhomes off of Chapel Hill Road that's already bringing a considerable amount of cars through that area. And then so on Stewart Mill and West Stewart Mill, even though it's an exciting project for those involved, those of us who travel that road pretty frequently, as well as the students who will be going to school on that road, I do have concerns on what that would look like traffic-wise. In addition, I have reached out to get deer crossing signs on that road. I've seen firsthand there are tons of deer and wildlife that live in that area. There's been nothing done regarding those things. And so my concern is we're taking away all the trees and nature and just cramming people in here. And so that's what I want to bring to everyone's attention, and kind of, if you do travel that road, think about the double or the triple numbers that are going to be on that road. So that's what I wanted to share.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to this application, please approach the podium. You would have 2 minutes. If you would state your name and address for the record first, sir.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. My name is Virgie Gordy. My address is 6856 Creekwood Drive. That's in Arbor Station. That's right here in Douglasville. So my concerns are kind of what the other people kind of brought up, traffic concerns. There is, I think, another project that's happening on Stewart Mill already. I think we got opposed to the townhouse zoning that happened there. So my biggest concern is the townhouse part of the zoning. It just brings a lot more traffic. There's a lot more units there with townhomes as opposed to single-family homes. Also, future concerns about property value. Usually, a lot of townhouse communities eventually, after a few years, after that first home owner is out, turn into rental properties. Rental properties usually drive down property values a lot. You see it happening. Hopefully, it doesn't happen all the time, but it happens a lot. The other young lady said about schools. Townhomes, communities, going to be a lot more school children. Those schools are overcrowded. So just overall, the population of townhomes being there will just increase lots of different problems for the area. Hopefully crime is not one of them, but that's another thing that could happen. Right now through our neighborhood, we have lots of speeders that come through. Douglasville Police does patrol through our neighborhood, but even when they patrol, they still don't cut down on the speeding and the cut through from Highway 5 over to Chapel Hill that comes through our community as is. So I think this will just increase that also. So I think just overall lots of concerns with the townhouse part of the rezoning.
Thank you very much, sir. Anyone else want to speak in opposition to this application? Please step to the podium. You would have 2 minutes. If you would state your name and address for the record first, please.
My name is Kelly Holden. My address is 3518 York Drive. And I drove a school bus for 10 years. And I actually drove a school bus in that area. I didn't come tonight to speak on this, but the schools are overcrowded right there. And if you think about the traffic that's going to bring to Highway 5, Chapel Hill, and Wakey, I mean, that's the only access to that area. And we already don't have enough school bus drivers. So that's my big concern, is all the traffic and the inability to get the kids back and forth to school.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate your input. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing no one else moving at this point in time, I will close the public hearing on this matter. Planning and Zoning Board, do you have any questions of Mr. McCullough or of staff?
It's Brandon Penham. I have a few questions. Let's start with Mr. McCullough first. I'm not sure if you'll be able to answer this question, Mr. McCullough, but could you tell me if the townhomes will be for rent or mortgage?
These are fee simple properties.
Okay. And then in regards to tapping into sewer, you guys, what option are you going to take, or have you guys been approved to tap into sewer there, or you will be using septic? Or?
So we will be required to connect to the public sewer system.
Okay.
And we've done a preliminary study, and we have a few different options, actually 4 different options of connecting to the public sewer system, and we have not yet committed to one of those. We do know that there was a previous agreement with the school system across their property for the other project. We have not entered into agreement, nor have we asked the school system yet for that same consideration. But there are other private property access points as well.
Okay. Now, considering the community concern, first question is, have you talked to any of your neighbors? Such as, let me do 2 questions at once so you can answer them both. Have you talked to any of your neighbors, including the church? And then, as far as a traffic study or the need for decel acceleration lanes, what's your viewpoint or purview on that?
So to my knowledge, I don't believe that we have reached out to any of the directly adjacent neighbors, including the church specifically, to address. We were unaware of concerns there, but willing to discuss those with the church as well. As far as the traffic question, access management, we rely on our traffic engineers, their recommendations, and also the county's Department of Transportation for access and vehicular and pedestrian management. And I believe they've kind of outlined what those things need to be to appropriately have the entrance on West Stewart's Mill Road, and we are in agreement with those.
Okay, I think that answers all my questions for you specifically.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for Mr. McCullough, please. Do you know for certain, will there be a HOA for this development?
Yes, ma'am, there will be an HOA for this development.
So the townhomes would be regulated as far as becoming rentals in the future by the HOA?
In typical HOA docs, I believe there are restrictions within those. Yes, ma'am.
And-
And I believe that would apply to the entire development, not just the townhome component.
Did Triton Homes consider eliminating townhomes and just do single resident homes?
Yes, ma'am, we did consider that. Part of the issue with that is doing detached, single-family homes solely on this property does not comply with the PRD multi-use requirement. So the townhome component and the detached component is a balance between our clients' needs and desires, and matching that with the code. Looking at it strictly as a detached development did not meet the requirements for density for Triton Homes.
For Triton Homes?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Okay, that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions, Planning and Zoning Board?
Just one question. Most of my questions have already been stated, but as far as a buffer between, say, the church behind there, St. Julian Church, and the development, what type of buffer space do we have there? Do you know that?
Currently, it's 20 feet. That's the building setback line. Okay? So at a minimum, we would have a 20-foot separation. I don't know that there's a specific requirement for that because of their zoning and our zoning, and there being compatible zoning uses adjacent to one another.
Will you keep trees? Is it going to keep a tree line back there, or is that part have to be taken down as well?
At this, I don't know if we will be removing trees that close or not at this time, but we would be, amenable to trying to keep trees or providing other type screening if that was something that our adjacent neighbors were interested in.
Here's another question. You may not know the price points of the different developments.
I'm sorry, I do not know the answer to that at this time.
I have any other questions.
Any other questions, Planning and Zoning?
Mr. Chairman, I have one more question. Based on the, will you have walking trails or have some way to access, like, walking or sidewalks outside of there so they connect to other places? Because I know that people have talked about, the traffic, they talked about, the speed. So have you looked into that? I know that some parts of the county require you to have sidewalks.
Yes, sir. So as part of the conditions, we're required to put 5-foot sidewalks around the perimeter of the property.
Okay.
We'll also have interior sidewalks for our residents within the neighborhood as well, and along our amenities area as well.
Okay. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Planning and Zoning Board?
I have one more question for staff, please. I get Phil. Okay, Phil, so first thing is just wanted to consider the questioning about the deer and the wildlife. Do we address that at all when we're having a big development like this? Is that in our purview under
I
environmental?
wasn't aware that there were that many deer crossing there, but of course, there are a number of vacant properties in that area down to the creek. And so there are a lot of deer, on our property too. So I assume we could address that at DRC and discuss with Director Valentine whether or not signs appropriate for warning people to the deer. I mean, that could be something we could talk about.
I think that'll be awesome.
But and as far as the earlier question about discussing with the neighbors, so just so I don't want the member of the church to go unrecognized, as far as I was contacted by church leadership in order to see about amending the property boundary to allow a development when it was originally going to be senior housing to purchase. There's a weird piece of the church property that dents into this property, and they had asked me how to go about selling that piece of property to that developer. So I don't know if the church deacons are still willing to do that or if they need more information, but
I think we need more information.
but that's what we had. I had spoken to someone.
There was an inquiry, but there was nothing settled on that.
No. I was contacted by the church itself personally to discuss that possibility. Not that anything was settled or anything, just that they asked me how it could be done. And then as far as the meeting with the public, we always hold our community information meeting. So when we held that community information meeting, we had a dozen or so people at that meeting over at the Transit Center. to discuss all of the cases. So, letters went out. We did hold a public meeting that people could come and ask questions to.
Awesome. Last question for you.
Was the church provided with that
They would have gotten a
information?
letter as an adjoining neighbor.
Okay.
Last question for you, Phil. So I see in condition number 4, this is under the amendment, the PRD amendment. Condition number 4 talks about the cemetery commission, and it says that one of the conditions is that they'll be responsible for having a qualified archaeologist to review the documents. Do we provide, does our environmental provide that, qualified archaeologist?
The developer will.
The developer will
Yeah.
provide that?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was just one of those unanswered questions from the last project because it didn't go forward. Nobody ever hired anyone to go out and do the true evaluation to know what was there. There may be nothing there, it's just that our cemetery commission is very thorough when they do these evaluations, and they just thought there might be. There was evidence that leads them to think maybe, but of course, that's why we put the condition in here, so that someone professional will go out and actually make sure there's nothing. If there is, that might change how the developer wishes to proceed.
Right. But the developer will be responsible for.
But the developer will be responsible.
acquiring that. Okay. All right, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Mr. Schaefer.
I have a question. Could I speak to the applicant again? I have a concern. We had approved this project before for senior housing. There's a great need for senior housing. Why was it changed? Why didn't you go along with that same aspect?
They couldn't get
Because there's a big need for senior housing in Douglasville.
They couldn't get credits.
Yes, so I do understand the question. That I do know that the previous project was going for some some bond financing with the DCA. Our client, Trayton Homes, does not, they don't do age-restricted developments. They're just not in that market. However, I have discussed this with them, and they said to make sure that we give assurances that this will be an age-targeted development, but they do not want the restriction written so that they must only sell to an age, a certain class.
Explain age targeted.
That is strictly just marketed toward them. Yes, sir. That is marketed toward them. Yes, sir. That is correct. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Schaefer, I was going to make a comment. Some of the things that we've talked about here, such as buffers, sidewalks, all that's handled in DRC, correct?
That's correct. Development Review Committee will handle all
out
of
of our purview.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Madam Chairman, we'll throw it over to the Board of Commissioners for any questions you may have of the applicant or staff.
Thank you so much, Chairman Simmons. Board of Commissioners, do you have any questions this time for the staff or the applicant? Commissioner Guider, you have the floor.
Yes, sir. Mr. Schaefer, please. When we were reviewing this, me meeting with you and everything, or talking with you over the phone, I questioned why there was just one entry to this complex, because there's another road, Stewart Mill Road, and it's certainly wide enough for the acceleration lane and deceleration lanes already there. Because what I foresee with this, together with the buses, the parents picking up the children, and then the Chick-fil-A down the road that spills out onto the road as it is, I see a mess. And just with one in and one out, more than likely, if they're trying to get to I-20, they're going to go that way down to West Stewart Mill Road, down to Highway 5. It just seems like a lot of traffic's going to empty into one area. And I can, most schools already have so many cars picking up the kids that they're on the public road while they're waiting to pick up their kids. And along with the buses, and then all these people going in and out. It worries me. It concerns me. Plus, down Stewart Mill Road, we will we're going to be in the process of adding a through lane down there at Reynolds Road, and that's going to slow traffic going that way. So this really concerns me, and you said you had the meeting with the community, but there was no one there representing the church. Was there anyone there representing the church?
I didn't meet anyone from the church.
Okay. And these are fee simple, these are going to be sold, even the attached units are
They're all
going
fee
to
si-
be
Yeah, that was the
sold.
proposal, fee simple.
Okay. But you came up with 700 vehicles or traffic going in and out of there?
That's
during
the trips per day on the traffic analysis.
In one entry?
Yeah. It doesn't exceed the 120 that we normally use as a threshold to demand 2 entries.
Well, is it next to a school?
Right, which hence my
I'm
requirement that...
talking about the combination, and, it's just, I hear more complaints about our traffic and our intersections. We finally got that intersection redone, and it's very nice. However, when we're all going to be directing the traffic past the school with the school traffic and everything, I just see a problem. And then once you get around that stop sign down there, then you run into the Chick-fil-A. And they're always backed out.
Yeah,
And
it's about
I
half a
love
mile.
Chick-fil-A. But I just wonder, is there, I know Ms. Knowles, you served on the cemetery commission for a long time. Did y'all ever go out in that area with with your committee? Can I ask?
Yes, ma'am. The cemetery commission walked over that property, and they suspected that there was a cemetery there, and they're now looking into previous ownerships of that property to see if there had been a church there in the cemetery, but they just suspected. It was never followed up on.
Yeah.
But the developer will have to do that,
But
my understanding.
if they found remains there, or some kind of a cemetery, they would have to block that off with a fence.
They'd have to follow the code of ordinances.
Yeah, and that's going to eat up, it depends on how widespread it is. And usually a church has a cemetery that goes along with it a lot of times. So that's not out of the question. But I'm surprised that we don't have something from the schools here. At least I didn't see. Did they comment about the overcrowding of the schools and the traffic?
They provided...
This is the elementary school,
Right,
so
they
a lot
provided
of parents
numbers.
pick up elementary.
Yeah, they provided numbers in the impact statements as to what the potential additional students for each level would be. So it's about 29 extra students at the elementary level, I think, and about the same for high school, a little bit less for elementary. So in the staff report, there, if you look at the impact statements,
So the
there's...
staff, the schools didn't object to this project?
They typically don't object, they provide us with the numbers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I would think they would say, hey, this is going to impact us a
Well,
whole
he-
lot, and we
yeah,
can't handle it.
We get that, we hear...
We get we
there's
have trailers.
no additional room.
Is Mr. Nicholson down there, do they still have the trailers there?
Yes, ma'am, we still have trailers.
Still have the trailers.
So you're using them as classrooms?
To the best of my knowledge, yes.
Okay, it just seems that we're not ready for this much at one place. I know they're going to hook to the sewage and everything, which is fine, but a lot of these are our problems too, are the county's problems. Traffic. And then we are processing
Fixes.
the intersection down there at Reynolds Road. We've got the townhomes that the city permitted, and that's going to put 400 more cars on the Chapel Hill Road interchange. The interchange is going to be redone. It's going to have, what do you call that diamond thing?
Or the interstate interchange.
So they're going to be working on that too. Maybe the timing is wrong, but until, just the fact that the schools are already overcrowded and then you bring in more right there.
And to circle back to your comment about the one entrance, so when we did see the original project, we had a development review committee courtesy review for that project. It was determined in consultation with our DOT folks that the site distance along West Stewart Mill was the most advantage at that location. So the entrance on West Stewart Mill was provided the longest distance view of oncoming traffic, which is why they chose that side. It was the proximity to the intersection at Yancey and West Stewart Mill that was problematic for entering Stewart Mill on the south side of the property.
But it's funneling.
Everything. I hear you.
Bottlenecking right there.
I hear you. But the DOT reps were telling us that it would be safer on West Stewart Mill.
Okay. And the other, at your meeting with the neighborhood people, did they object to anything?
Traffic. Yeah.
Okay.
As we all know, traffic.
And how many, could someone tell me how many bedrooms each one of these townhomes have?
It's a variety.
The 74 townhomes.
I'm not specifically, I am not positive, but I am quite certain that they are all a 3-2 kind of combination on all the units.
So
Okay?
there could be 2 kids and mom and daddy.
There may be, I can't answer that. And if you allow me, Ms. Guider, to address the access management, the concern about that. So, and Mr. Schaefer kind of addressed it. So the previous project, this is the exact same location of the access of the 110-unit apartment complex that was going to go there as well. So the DOT, we consulted with them about that. This is the most safest point on this property for access for any project, to be quite honest with you, regardless of its type of use. And that is because of the intersection site distance requirement here that we have. Placing this any closer to the intersection actually is a traffic nightmare creating that. So this is the most appropriate location that we could site this entrance.
No, I was saying there ought to be 2 entries, if anything, because to keep it from funneling into one, bottlenecking right there.
Yes, ma'am, I appreciate that. And that's, so my sentiment back to that is the second entrance would, by virtue of the way the property's oriented, would be required to be closer to the intersection, which the DOT did not like at all.
But
but I do understand the sentiment of a second one as another ingress and egress in and out of the property.
But the difference in the other project was the age. Most of them, that age, they don't have little kids that may be going to that school. 55 was the age limit. Is that not true?
The previous project, yes, ma'am, had age restriction of 55,
And
you're correct.
so, they may not have little kids that they have to take to school or walk to school or cross the crossing there. But when you have younger people, you have younger kids too. So, and I believe that no one knows how it's going to impact the schools, to be honest. But we do know that the schools are overcrowded already. So, anyway, with that, I yield back. Thank you for answering my question.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Guider. Any other comments forward? I just had one comment. Certainly, I was excited when I heard the senior it was initially going to be a senior project, 55 and above. And I have a little heartburn because of, the traffic, of course, and then the impact to the schools. Our seniors definitely need some housing. The baby boomers are just aching for some residential places to live, and of course, housing in Douglas County, particularly affordable housing for our seniors, is really at the top of the radar for the seniors here in the county. So I just had questions about it. And then also I have heartburn about just one entry, one way in and no way out. That concerns me too. If you have an emergency, what are the plans to get in and out? How do you respond to that? And can you respond to the plan if you had?
Yes, ma'am.
that in
So
mind?
there is a threshold that particularly the fire marshal requires, and that is 120 units. Anything above that is required to have a second entrance, and we do not meet that threshold.
Okay, thank you. All right, I have no further questions. I yield back to you, Chairman Simmons.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. You can sit down right now.
Thank you, sir.
Planning and Zoning Board, you have heard the presentations, you've heard the discussions. Do I have a motion on the map amendment, M 2022-07? We'll take that first.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to deny application M 2022-07.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Brandon Penniman, second.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion to deny M 2022-07 map amendment, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. Madam Chairman, our Planning and Zoning Board has a unanimous recommendation to deny M 2022-07. The motion for the future land use map amendment.
Thank you so much, Chairman Simmons. Board of Commissioners, you've heard all the questions and answers. Do we have a motion?
Yes, ma'am. I make a motion to deny application M 2022-07.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Board, any discussion? We have a motion and a second. When I call you, your districts, please respond accordingly. District 1? Okay. Yeah, approve the denial. District 3?
Yes.
District 4?
Yes.
Chairman, yes. We have a 4-0 unanimous vote to deny. Let me make sure, M 2022-07. And the motion carried to deny. And I'm yield back to you, Chairman Simmons.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Since M 2022-07 was denied, then we do not need to take up the zoning change because it would be a moot point at this juncture. All right. Mr. Schaefer, next item, please.
Mr. Schaefer, point of order. I'm sorry.
Yes. Commissioner Mitchell, you have the floor.
I'm just going to not abstain. I'm going to defer from this particular item discussion due to a conflict.
Okay.
So I'm going to recuse myself from this particular discussion and/or item, okay? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Mitchell. And for the record, Commissioner Mitchell is recusing himself on this next item, okay? Thank you.
Still give you a quorum.
Yeah, I have a quorum. Three. Mm-hmm.
That business out of the way, the next item is Z 2022-66, S 2022-67. We'll hear the rezoning first and then the special use permit. This is a request to rezone from CGC General Commercial with Conditions to CH Heavy Commercial and a special use permit to allow self-storage facility located at 3485 Highway 5. The property is approximately 5.5 acres. The property is located on the west side of Highway 5, north of Central Church, south of Lindale Street. The site is surrounded on four sides by existing drive aisles and parking. Wait, this is the wrong one. Site graded, nope, just in the front. So the planning concerns. The property was previously rezoned from RLD, residential low density, to CN, neighborhood commercial with conditions under application Z 2012-16, and has been graded out for the entrance area to the commercial development. The access is available off of Highway 5, and the properties are already fully developed with offices on the either side of it. This is the zoning map showing the CGC. The subdivision to the west and north was developed in the 70s. The street, Yoni Drive, is what you see entering the property on the left. There will be no access through this property to Yoni Drive. This is an aerial showing the residential areas surrounding the property and the site plan of the property itself with what was there. The proposal is to place approximately 416 storage units and approximately 50 additional RV and boat and camper type trailer parking areas on the property in several buildings, some of which will be climate controlled, some of which won't. The close-up here for looking at the site plan so that you can see the different buildings. The property will provide a 50-foot setback between the building itself and the surrounding residential properties. That's a requirement under our zoning code. Here is, although it's a little difficult to see, this is a rendering of the draft version of what the property might look like. Here is a little close-up of what would look like on the interior for the roll-up doors on the unconditioned side, as well as what the walls and the fencing would look like to the outside and the property's office as well. This is Highway 5 looking south on the right-hand side there. A little hard to see, but there's the bump out for the turn lane into the property, and it's been graded and trees have been cut. This is looking directly into that existing entrance, but as you'll note, there is still the median between the two, so obviously this will only be a right-in, right-out project. As far as the zoning analysis, staff evaluates this, and it does meet the criteria for all of the zoning requirements. As far as the special use permit, it does meet the criteria for the special use permit as well. And staff is recommending approval of the rezoning Z 2022-66 from CGC to CH with the findings that A, the rezoning will not modify the intent, purpose, or spirit of Douglas County Unified Development Code. B, the proposed zoning is consistent with the comprehensive future land use plan. Categorization of this property is within the transitional corridor area, which incorporates commercial and residential uses. And C, the uses permissible in the proposed zoning district are generally compatible with surrounding properties. And D, the granting of the rezoning will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare. Staff is also recommending approval of the rezoning and the rezoning findings. And the conditions are for, number one, additional site improvements for paved parking or driveways and for construction of storage facility will require the review and authorization prior to installation by the Development Review Committee, DRC. Number two, any other uses on the property not identified within Section 210, uses allowed in each zoning district, specifically Table 2.2, principal uses allowed by right, and 2.3, accessory uses allowed by right of the Douglas County Unified Development Code may require the submission, review, and approval of a new special use permit. Number three, parking must be contained within the property. There cannot be on-street parking along the public right-of-way. And number four, specifically, no access to Yoni Drive shall be permitted. And then I did attach the directive to staff to go out in a year and review the property to make sure that if it's built, it does, in fact, meet all of the standards of the UDC that we require. With that, I'll conclude my presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schaefer. At this point in time, I'll open the public hearing on this matter. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application, including the applicant or the applicant's representative, please step to the podium. You would have 2 minutes per person for a total of 15 minutes. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening. My name is Jay Srinath. I represent the applicant William Warren Properties. My address is 5193 Austell Road, Austell, Georgia. I thank the Planning and Zoning Board as well as the County Commissioners for the opportunity to address you this evening. One of the things we had an opportunity to do was to meet with the prospective neighbors to this property about a month ago. And there were, I would say, about 12 to 15, at least 12 to 15 neighbors who were there, and they had a range of questions and concerns dealing with utilities, lighting, security, the staffing at this property, if and when it's developed, as well as just the general maintenance of the property, traffic inflow and outflow, and all of those. We think we had a very good dialogue with them, we were able to hopefully address their concerns. They actually gave us some suggestions as well that my client intends to incorporate going forward. The suggestions were varied as far as lighting. Some of them had concerns that, given the nature of the property, are there going to be too many lights, too many floodlights? And certainly that would be a problem for the neighborhood. We assured them that the lighting will be adequate to provide security, but essentially the lighting would face down, so it wouldn't be a glare, if you will, to the neighbors. Nobody wants to have floodlights going into their backyard or any place else for that matter. They also gave us suggestions on areas of shrubs and trees that are already there, in terms of maintaining them, in terms of, actually, some of them wanted us to have some of those trees removed, if possible. So we've tried to incorporate all of their suggestions. We've tried to address their suggestions at the meeting. And going forward, if we have the opportunity to go forward with this project, we intend to be essentially good neighbors to the folks that are there. I have with me Mr. Todd Zinsmaster. He is the representative for my client, and he will be more than happy to address any questions or concerns the board or the commission has at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application, please step to the podium. You would have 2 minutes. Seeing no one moving, I will close the public hearing in favor and open the public hearing in opposition. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application, please approach the podium. You would have 2 minutes per person for a total time of 15 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record again. Go
Kelly
ahead.
Holpen, it's 3518 York Drive, and this facility is going to go right behind my house. It's going to be right in my backyard, and I'm not opposed to it necessarily, because there could be a lot worse things to go there than a storage facility. But I do want to make sure that they are held to what they agreed to when we had our county meeting, that there is a wall there and that there's not a lighting that would make it look like an airport to where our homes are not affected. And, you know, I'm concerned too about rodents and that kind of thing as far as a storage facility. They assured us during that meeting, though, that they would take care of all the problems that we may have. So I guess we just go from that and take them. I mean, you'll make sure that everything that we agreed in that day would be. What's the drainage? Yes, the drainage problem. All the neighborhood drains right to that area, right behind my house. There's actually it's a creek now. It used to be a drainage ditch, but it's a creek now. So there's a lot of drainage there. And all the things that they agreed to in our community meeting, if they can stand by all that, then we're not opposed at all. But if they don't, then, you know, it's kind of too late for us to do anything about it. So.
I understand.
So, but we can count on you to make sure of that, right? Okay.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to this application, please approach the podium. Seeing no one moving, I will close the public hearing on this matter. Planning and Zoning Board, you have heard the presentation and the discussion. Do we have any questions of Mr. Schaefer or the applicant's representative?
It's Brandon Penham. I have a question for the applicant. Really simple. Should be a one-word answer, possibly. In consideration of this neighbor and her comments, are you guys willing to stay true to your word to address these different issues that the community has brought up?
Absolutely. Not just for her concerns, but the others who were there at the meeting. We intend to be good neighbors to all of those folks.
Thank you.
Got a quick question, Rob Thomas. How long this project supposed to take to actually complete? Do you have an estimate on that, or the other
I
gentleman
would,
need to speak on that?
if you don't mind, I would defer to
Sure, that's fine.
Mr. Zinmaster. He'll give
Sure.
you a
Just
better
go.
idea.
If you would state your name and address for the record first, please.
My name is, excuse me, my name is Todd Zinsmaster. I'm Director of Real Estate for the applicant. We're located at 90F Glenda Trace, Suite 105 in Noonan, Georgia. The duration, once we commence construction, usually takes like a traditional commercial property development, about 12 months, 10 to 12 months. Usually the earthworking, of course, is the first thing to occur, where it might create some dust or whatnot, but the duration is.
And the reason I brought it up, did you also bring that up to the neighbors, that the duration?
It was actually
heavy
discussed.
equipment, that type of thing will be?
Yeah, one of the neighbors was concerned because she works at home, she works remotely, and was inquiring about the duration. Regardless if it's our development or any other commercial development, it's going to take 12 months.
Yeah, I understand. I just make sure that you brought that up to their attention.
Yes, it was
Okay.
discussed.
And where's your sewer going to be connected? Have you determined that yet?
Well, we have spoken with WSA, and in terms of utilities, we're a very small use of restrooms and water and sanitary. The sewer, the drainage issue that was brought up, we have underground detention, which has been designated under the 55 spaces that have been reserved for both RV and boat storage.
So you're going to partner with your neighbors to take care of the drainage, in addition to the sewer line, the sewer connection? Is that on Highway 5? Is that where it is? Across?
The sanitary is on Highway 5, yes.
Okay, so you're going to go across Highway 5 to get to it?
I think-
Not to the subdivision?
You know, we already had a meeting with WSA, and they believe they need to confirm it with GDOT that there's sewer on our side of the street. I don't recall Jack and Board required.
Okay, but you are going to partner with them as far as getting the drainage?
Oh, absolutely,
and sort of
yeah,
out?
everything will be designed per
So
code
kind of
and
win-win in
requirement
that
and
case,
WSA. And, nobody wants to flood their neighbor.
Right. Well, it was already flooding. I mean,
Right,
help
if
improve
anything,
that
it's going to
flooding.
be improved.
Right,
Yeah.
okay, well, that's win-win. Okay, that's good. I don't have any other questions.
Okay, question, that kind of brings up the sewer. Are you going to have on-site management? Or
We
will
will.
it be remotely managed?
We'll have at least one person designated at all times. We hire at least two minimum for each property during operating hours.
Okay, thank you.
And our intent, to follow up on your question regarding that, my client's intent is to essentially have an open meeting when they start operating, so that the neighbors get to know the person on site, and as well as have a means of communication, and kind of put a face to a name and a number, and be able to reach him or her whenever there are concerns that need to be addressed by our client.
Thank you. Any other questions, Planning and Zoning Board?
And this may have already been asked, I'm sorry if I missed it. Question for the applicant. What are your hours of operation?
Our operating hours are traditionally 9 to 6.
So no one can access their storage unit?
Oh,
after
no,
6?
there's keypads available. You can't keep people away from their stuff, but there's keypads which are, we have state-of-the-art security and keypads available to get access to the units.
So they can access their units any hour of the night or day? Or?
They can. The interesting thing about self-storage in our particular facilities, the vehicular traffic is really a minimum. We get like 16 cars a day, 16 trips a day during the week. The weekends are a little bit more, closer to 50 per day. I mean, if you compare that to an average fast food restaurant, gets 18 to 2,800. I mean, it's significantly lower. We don't have much nighttime traffic. We do have a dumpster, but it's used specifically for the office use. It's not for public use. It's not for our renters. There's just not a whole lot of nighttime activity occurring. And we do have, like I said, the state-of-the-art security system that is monitored 24/7.
And you will have a solid wall around your campus area? So
Yes, it's fully self-contained. It's a combination of both the building walls. When working with Mr. Schaefer in Douglas County, of course, it was requested that we don't have any units, the metal doors, overhead doors viewed from the right-of-way, And then where it calls for 6-foot fence, we actually increased it to 8 feet. It's a solid fence, it's not chain link with slats, it's a solid fence, and where there's not a fence, there will be buildings. So everything is self-contained and not visible from the outside.
So to protect the neighbors' peace, so the quietness of the night, is there some way to remind your tenants to, if they come in after certain hours, to keep down the noise?
The amount of traffic, like I said, compared to any other commercial use, whether it be a McDonald's or a Publix or what have you, the nighttime activity is extraordinary. Extraordinary. You know, everything from a dumpster pickup to deliveries. We're talking about very few and infrequent occupants actually using it. If it becomes an issue, we'll definitely remind them, but we haven't had this issue at other locations. Our particular organization is one of the largest privately held self-storage facility operators in the country. We manage, we develop, we acquire. We have over 280 units in 25 states. This is what we do, and we try to be good neighbors and work with all the jurisdictions in every project.
So during the construction phase, do you know when construction will cut off in the evenings? Is it like 4 o'clock?
Yeah, traditionally, we don't work nights, yeah, correct.
So by the time people come home in the evenings, construction will be wrapping up for the day, and they can have a peaceful existence with your development during the construction phase?
That seems fair, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions, Planning and Zoning Board?
Brandon Penham, I have one more quick question. I see Mr. John Citizen here this evening. Mr. Citizen, as a community pillar, as a pillar in our community, are you here to represent this project or to?
Yes, sir, my office does, sir. I'm E. John Citizen. I work for Street Out Associates.
You need to come to the mic. Thank you.
I know. Good evening, Mr. Penman. I am E. John Citizen. I work for Street Out Associates. We are working together to bring this project to fruition. Again, we want to be a good neighbor. We have worked above and beyond to make sure that the project meets above and beyond the standards. Because again, I live in Brookmont. I got condos being built right behind my house. I understand the impact of work being done, the dust going on around that. You understand how we feel. So I had the same concerns. I'm a Douglasville native, not a native, but I've been here 35 years. So I understand. So we wanted to make sure the lights were tempered down, to make sure that the lights was not beaming in the bedroom. We wanted to make sure that we represented our neighbors properly, and everything our client is doing is to make sure that we are a good neighbor. We're in 25 states. We have over 200-plus units already in existence. California, New Mexico, all up and down there. And we're trying to make Douglas County a premier spot for our client. We're looking at one here. We got another one we're looking at on 92. And we're looking at a possible third location in the county because it's a growing county. We got these big apartments on 92 we got to look at. We looked at the development that just was shot down on West Stewart Mill and Stewart Mill. People coming. A lot of people working out of storage units who are self-employed. They use storage units as their offices. Not to work from that unit, but to get their supplies every day. Contractors like lawn care people, machine shop people, they need these places to keep their businesses alive. So we try to provide a good service.
Thank you, Mr. Citizen.
Any other questions?
I have a question. Yes. Based on, are these units, any of them going to be cooling units, or there's going to be climate control? And I have a second question to that. Is the boats, I know you said you have boats and RVs that's going to be parked there. Do you know how many boats and RVs are going to be parked there at that location at any given time?
Yes, the entire facility is 61,000 square feet. We've designated about 33,000 square feet to be climate controlled. In terms of units, Mr. Schaefer mentioned 416, about 75%, because the climate controlled units are traditionally smaller, will be climate controlled. Everything within building A on the site plan that you might have in your package is climate controlled, while B, C, and D would be non-climate controlled. Your second question is we have 55 parking spaces designated for RV boat storage. And our architect did an extraordinary job in doing the turns, the truck turn radiuses. He had a 30-foot RV pulling a boat to meander around our property to make certain that all the turns were sufficient. So we have plenty of room on our facility for those parking, for the RV and boat parking.
Okay, thank you. I have no other questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, one thing before you leave, it's the two of you. You heard the conditions that Mr. Schaefer read in concerning the zoning.
Yes, sir, I did.
Are you in agreement with those conditions?
Yes, very reasonable conditions.
Okay, thank you very much. If we get there, we have to take up the map amendment first. Thank you. Okay, we're turning it over to you, Madam Chairman, for any questions the commissioners may have.
Thank you so much, Chairman Simmons. Board of Commissioners, do we have any questions? Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner, I saw Commissioner Carpenter hand first this time, Commissioner Guider.
Hi, this is to the applicant. Can you talk to us in regards to after hours? Like I heard there will be someone there from 9 to 6, but what about after hours? If our constituents had a question, had an issue, who would they contact and how would you handle that?
That's a good question. In what reference are you? It's our intent, of course, to have an on-site management between 9 and 6. If there's issues on site, there's an office number up in the front if there's concerns or questions and who to reach. In fact, we're actually looking at potentially having, everyone's getting more comfortable with Zoom and online transactions. There may be an opportunity, we're still exploring this, about having, the opportunity to connect with somebody, electronically if there's a concern.
Okay. I just want to reference security because that's the main thing. This is a residential area, and I know will be mixed use. But what I heard, because I did have some emails regarding this, even though this is not my area, was in regards to safety and security. So I just wanted to make sure that
Yeah, it's definitely state of the art. Monitored 24/7. There shouldn't be an issue. I mean, I don't consider this particular location crime-ridden. I mean, we're in very challenging areas in Los Angeles and Phoenix, and I don't envision we'll have any issues. But regardless, we still maintain the same level of security whether we're in downtown LA or in Douglas County.
So the gates, those will be automatic gates. You would have to have a code to get through there.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And it's monitored, so you know who's coming in, who's coming out. Cameras are on the front
Yep.
and throughout the establishment.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Who's monitoring those cameras? Who
It's
is the
a
backup?
company similar to ADT.
Okay, got you. All right. Thank you. With that, Madam Chair, I yield.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Carter. Commissioner Guider, you have the floor.
Yes. The area that you are going to have for the trailers and the boats and whatever, is that paved or is it an impervious surface or pervious?
It is impervious. It is paved. It's actually where our detention is. That's where our underground detention is actually below that paved area.
Now, you say an underground retention.
Yes.
It's not going to be like they have up there at the shopping center, right up the street. It's just like a water runoff pond. Is it going to have like
Sorry, I
a
don't know what you're-
cistern or something underneath the ground?
An underground detention is just like an above-ground detention, like you would have a pond, but it's underground. It's made up a combination of corrugated HDPE pipe, hang cord type pipe that's run, and it carries the same amount of capacity. It's just below surface. It's not above.
So it's going to take care of any water runoff
Yes,
from
ma'am.
both the buildings and the parking and everything?
Yes, ma'am, you're absolutely correct.
Because I could see that be a concern of any, like York Place. back behind it and everything. But that's where the retention is going to be, is right there. It's going to be captured before it leaves your property.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Also, you said it's right in, right out, but there is a loop where you can flip-flop right there. So it's very convenient to that.
It's
So-
extraordinarily convenient. It's
Yeah.
well designed on both
It
sides,
shouldn't-
north and
yeah.
south, to do the.
It shouldn't
do
be
the turn.
too big of a problem.
I think you're right.
That's
We're
good.
fortunate to have that decel lane already installed.
Yeah. And really, you're not building sideways, you're building back. So it's going to be hidden. It's just going to look like a little storefront or something.
You know, we were joking about it at the office. Anybody's driving by, unless they're looking for us and are looking for self-storage and know who we are, they might zoom right by us because it looks like a professional building. You won't see any units. You won't see any overhead doors. It'll look like a very tasteful earth tone color structure. We've even added a 4-foot-high stone knee wall. We've taken a look at the Douglas County standards and you know, and wholeheartedly adapted them. We are actually considering making it our prototype because it turned out so well.
Okay, and there will be a buffer between the subdivision right there.
Yeah, all the buffers are in accordance with the local requirement, as
Tree
as will
buffer.
everything be.
A tree buffer or shrubbery buffer, right?
All buffers will be in accordance with, I can't imagine Mr. Schaefer or anybody else in the county letting us do something that we aren't supposed to do, so all the buffers will be adhered to.
Okay, really and truly, the parking lot for the boats and everything is very needed because a lot of subdivisions, the HOA will not allow you to park a motor home or anything, or a trailer on the street or even in your yard. So it's good to know that they're.
It's interesting you mentioned that. When we did our research, we don't always do RV and boat storage, but we did our research and we came up with the same conclusion.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I yield back.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Guide. I just have one more question for you before you leave. Can you talk to me about the barrier, the wall that you talk about? Will it have any type of acoustic materials to just buffer the sound at all? Anything related to acoustics?
The wall.
A fence or whatever you said you were going to put.
Yeah, it's a solid fence, 8-foot tall solid fence.
Oh, it's a fence,
UV,
okay.
UV inhibitors. It's designed to be the similar color and match tastefully to the earth tones that we have. There's no insulating.
Yeah, it doesn't
properties on
absorb the
fence,
acoustic. Yeah. Okay.
but it is taller than required.
Mhm.
The structure itself is a combination of ephes and 4-foot stone knee walls. So, but
Okay. Okay, next question for you. Could you speak to your grounds beautification plan? Do you have a plan to keep the grounds clean, neat, sanitary? Can you speak to what your plans are? I heard the word rodents earlier from one of our citizens. And I
I'm
just
sorry, I
wanted to
must be
see.
getting tired. I'm hearing about every other word. I heard cemetery and aerobics.
No,
That
can you speak to your grounds beautification plan and your sanitation plan, if you have one, for this particular property?
Well, all of our facilities, including this one, have on-site personnel.
Mhm.
Part of their responsibility is not only to make sure that it's clean and kept up, but we also have maintenance and landscaping.
I think that's what I was looking for.
Our client intends to consult with an arborist to come up with a feasible plan, not just for their building, but also in connection with the concerns that the neighbors had raised, so that it's compatible to not just the building, but also the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. You touched on the high points. Thank you for that. I love landscaping, flowers, cleanliness, that's very important, particularly for the neighbors that's in that particular area. They're expecting pristine. All right, so.
Madam Chair.
I know, Commissioner Carthen, I jarred your memory.
One last question.
Of course.
She sparked a thought. What happens when your clients leave materials? how will you handle that? Will you do something with a pickup company for cleanup? Are you planning to use the Douglas County landfill? What is your plan on that?
Are you referencing tenants who have not
Tenants
paying
who-
their bills?
Tenants who are
they
not
have
paying, or
product?
tenants who, decide, they're gonna abandon stuff and they leave it.
Well, there's several different ways. I don't know, I'm not on the operational side. I don't know the
Okay.
exact answer on this one.
Okay.
But there's several different ways that we handle tenants who have just left and are no longer paying, and there's, product within the unit. We can do, online auctions. There's ways that they manage it. I don't know what the flavor of the day is, but we certainly need to get that removed and, handled. I just don't know
Do
the
you have a
specifics.
dumpster on site? Will there be a dumpster on
We
site for
do.
those tenants to,
It's not traditionally used for tenants. It's for our office use.
yeah.
Yeah, we don't, there's 400 units. Most people who are bringing their cherished memories or whatever they need to have stored don't traditionally need dumpsters as well, So the dumpsters are used for our operational purposes.
Got you. I just know because I've used a lot of storage units because I have 4 daughters, all college students, and we've used a lot of storage units. And one of the things that really got me was that people would lean stuff against the buildings. They would lean stuff against the storage units because the contract says you got to take it out. And so in their mind, if I remove it out of the storage unit, then I've completed my task. And it just looks messy as you're coming to get your memories out of the way. So I just want to see how you address that.
Sounds like you have a poor operator at the facility you're at, because that.
Hey. So, yeah, that's why I asked that question. But, with that, Madam Chair, I yield.
Okay, thank you so much, Commissioner Carthen. Now yield back to you, Chairman Simmons.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Planning and Zoning Board, you've heard the presentations, you've heard the discussion. Do I have a motion on the zoning Z 2022-66, please?
This is Brandon Penniman. I'll make a motion to approve application Z 2022-66, a request for rezoning from CGC General Commercial with conditions to CH Heavy Commercial, or Commercial Heavy, with the findings and conditions as presented by staff.
I second it.
I have a motion and I have a second. Do we have any discussion, Planning and Zoning Board? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the question to approve Z 2022-66. Please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. That's unanimous, Madam Chairman. Planning and Zoning staff recommends approval of Z 2022-66, the rezoning application unanimously.
Thank you so much, Chairman Simmons. Board of Commissioners, you've heard all the questions and answers. Do we have a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve application Z 2022-66 with the conditions as presented by staff and as approved, and as recommended by the Planning and Zoning staff.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Board? We have a motion and a second. When I call your districts, please respond accordingly. District 3?
Yes.
District 4?
Yes.
Chairman, yes. We have a 3-0 vote, and the motion carries for the approval of Z 2022-66. And I yield the floor back to you, Chairman Simmons.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. With the approval of the zoning, do I have a motion on the special use permit Z 2022-67?
This is Rob Thomas. Make a motion to approve application S 2022-64, request for special use permit to allow for self-storage facilities with findings and conditions as presented by staff.
And that,
Frank Payne, second.
You said S 2022-67?
67? Right.
Okay, I thought you misstated that. It said 45.
I make a motion to approve application S 2022-67, request for a special use permit to allow for self-storage facility and with findings and conditions as presented by staff.
Thank you.
Frank Payne, second.
I have a motion and I have a second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing no discussion, please, I will call for a vote on the approval of S 2022-67. Please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Madam Chairman, Planning and Zoning Board recommends unanimously the approval of S 2022-67, special use permit with the findings and conditions by staff.
Thank you so much, Chairman Simmons. Board of Commissioners, you've heard all the questions and the answers. Do we have a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve application S 2022-67 with the findings and conditions as presented by staff and as unanimously approved by the Planning and Zoning Board.
Okay, thank you so much, Commissioner Carthen. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, and we have a second from Commissioner Guider. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion, Board? We have a motion and a second. When I call your districts, please respond accordingly. District 3?
Yes.
District 4?
Yes.
Chairman, yes. We have a 3-0 vote, and the motion carries. And to approve S 2022-67, and the motion carries. And I yield back the floor to you, Chairman Simmons.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. At this point in time, being nothing else on the Planning and Zoning Board agenda, I will declare the Planning and Zoning Board adjourned. Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you so much, Chairman Simmons. At this time, if there's nothing else to come before this body of Board of Commissioners, this meeting is adjourned, and good night.